When Damar Hamlin was knocked unconscious and the game between the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals was canceled, given how it was an NFL game with 2 playoff teams, there were bound to be major playoff implications. The NFL made, in my opinion, an incorrect decision to cancel the game, but it did not affect any team who hadn't made the playoffs yet. And there was some reasons why. In the AFC East, at that point in time, only the Bills had clinched the playoff spot. The Miami Dolphins would clinch a playoff spot in Week 18. However, the Bills had already clinched the AFC East. Nobody was touching that. That they got in Week 16 for their 3rd consecutive year. Although, it was a big celebration when they got it in 2020 for the first time since the 1990s. The Cincinnati Bengals had actually not clinched the AFC North yet. But the team that they were competing against, the Baltimore Ravens, had already clinched a playoff spot, and it was the 2 battling it out for the title. The Cleveland Browns were eliminated from the playoff contention, and the Pittsburgh Steelers were seen as having a very little chance of even getting in, and they wound up not making it. Now, as far as the Kansas City Chiefs are concerned, they had already clinched the AFC West, but they were now fighting out for the bye, and the Bills not playing actually made it a lot easier for them. Pretty much, the Bills finished the season at 13-3, and the Bengals finished the season at 12-4. Now, ties are really annoying to factor in, and I've decided to omit them for the video, and only talk about what would have happened if one or the other team had won the game, what that would have led to. I will, however, then discuss briefly what would have happened with a tie, but believe me, it's going to be ugly and choppy. And for these situations, I really don't feel like mentioning ties. So which team benefited the most from it? You have 4 teams with 4 different stories behind them. In the case of the Kansas City Chiefs, I think that they benefited the most from this. The reason why I say that is because the Kansas City Chiefs, now all they had to do was win 1 game or have the Bills lose a game. If they won, then that would put them at 14-3 and give them the bye. But this would be unfair to the Bills, because if they won, they'd be 14-3 and have a tiebreaker over the Kansas City Chiefs due to winning a game over them. So to compensate the Bills for this, an agreement was made that if both teams won their games, then there would be a neutral site AFC Championship game in Atlanta. Because again, it made it a lot harder for them. The Bills essentially had to then root for the Raiders to win. I mean, that would have dropped the Chiefs at 13-4 and kept the Bills at 13-3, which would have guaranteed the Bills the first round bye, because even if they were to have lost the game against the Bengals, 13-4, Bills still control tiebreaker. But the Las Vegas Raiders had no realistic shot of beating the Kansas City Chiefs. That just realistically could not have happened. And it didn't happen. But this neutral site AFC Championship game was meant to be where they know, and obviously seeding couldn't be fixed. The Bills are set to play in the wild card game, but none of that wound up mattering because the Bills wound up losing by a landslide to the Cincinnati Bengals in the divisional game. Now, speaking of the Buffalo Bills, that's how they were largely affected. Cincinnati Bengals. So, this is tough for the Bengals, because this pretty much locked them out of the 2 seed. It kept them in the 3 seed, and they won't really give much compensation for it. Now, should the Bengals have won while both the Chiefs and Bills lost, this would have dropped the Chiefs to 13-4, dropped the Bills to 12-4, and the Bengals have been 12-4. this is confusing because I don't know how the tiebreaker would have worked, but I think based on conference record, I think the Bills still would have won out anyway, but I'm not entirely sure. That I'll have to look up. But based on the way they said it, yeah, they was going to be the 3 seed. But when you think about it, if that game was played and it was a Bengals victory, Bills are now 12-5, Bengals are 13-4, Chiefs are 13-4, and the Bengals also won a game over the Chiefs, and they would have a tiebreaker over them. So it meant that if the Chiefs and Bills both lost and the Bengals won, then there would be a neutral site AFC Championship game. That was really hard to happen though, because the Patriots would have had to have beaten the Bills, although the Patriots were fighting for a playoff spot. The Raiders, who were already eliminated in Week 17, would have had to have beat the Chiefs, and then the Bengals had to beat the Ravens, which, you know. I think there's another case where what would have happened if the Chiefs won, but the Bills lost, and then the Bengals won. I think, because that would put the Chiefs... no, I don't think that would have been able to have happened. Maybe the Chiefs lost and the Bills and Bengals both won. Week 18. Forget what that scenario was, because I'm trying to think if that was the case. Because then 13-3 Bills, and then 12-4. I don't remember what the third scenario was for a neutral site AFC Championship game, but I'm trying to think. And then there was one scenario I do remember for the settling the AFC North. So if the Bengals had lost that game, they would have been dropped to, if they had lost that game and then had lost the game against the Ravens, they would be 12-5. Now the Ravens had won, wait, actually no, if the Bengals had lost their game, they'd be at 12-5. They then lost to the Ravens, they'd be at 11-6. And the Ravens winning Week 18 would also put them at 11-6. So now if the Bengals had won that game and then lost to the Ravens, they'd still be at 12-5. But there's no way of telling what would have actually happened if the Bengals lost to the Ravens. So then they would have had to have done a coin flip for the AFC North title. This would have screwed the Ravens over, because even though they could have won the AFC North, they'd still be put at the 6th seed. And it only happened if the Chargers won, because the Chargers winning and them getting the 11-6 record, combined with a better conference record, would keep them in the 5 seed. But if they had lost and the Ravens won, they'd be in the 5 seed, and they would be forced, and they wouldn't get any competition for this. So it was made after Ravens and Chargers both won in Week 18. Chargers are playing the Denver Broncos. So win seemed likely, but then they wound up losing. The site of the wild card game would be determined by a coin flip. And the reason why they would have to do a coin flip was because, again, there's no true way of telling, because in the 11-6 case, the Ravens would have swept the Bengals. Now, fortunately for the Bengals, they were able to win Week 18, which meant that them having 6 losses was now deemed impossible. And better for them yet, the Ravens were dropped to 10-7. And Chargers losing or winning, it wouldn't have mattered. They'd still be locked at a 6 seed, but now they'll get no compensation for it, because now it's the Bengals really were truly that winner. So which team benefited the most from it? I gotta say the Chiefs. Which team was screwed over the most by it? Probably the Bills, although having that neutral site AFC Championship game option was always fun. It's hard to tell in these situations what really would have happened if that game was played. In the event of a tie now, this would have put the Bills at 13-3-1 and the Bengals at 12-4-1, assuming Week 18 was constant. But it could have still have led to have very messy results. Now, a tie would have still resulted in the Bengals clinching the North, because the worst they could have gotten was 11-5-1. And you know, Bills tying, the worst they could have been at was 12-4-1. Now, in the event of a tie, they'd still need a Chiefs loss or tie in order to force this championship game to be in order to get one team, to be a neutral site game. That's what, you know, would have happened. So, hard to say what would have happened. Just think it's an interesting case, and I will look up the third scenario.